Thanks to the space program, astronomers know a great deal about what is out there, but they can't tell us how it all got there. The tough thing for scientists is facing the question of ultimate cause. Only by revelation can we touch the infinite and learn the answer. Today, the Bible sheds light on how it all came to be. Stay with us. From Chicago's Moody Church, this is Running to Win with Dr. Erwin Lutzer, whose clear teaching helps us make it across the finish line. Our series is called 7 Reasons Why the Bible is God's Word. Today, Dr. Lutzer brings reason number 5, creation and the Bible.
How do you think it all got started anyway? How did it all begin? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Ever since the 1920s, when Edwin Hubble, who graduated incidentally from the University of Chicago here, discovered and confirmed that the universe is constantly expanding. And when you think of that expansion, just imagine a balloon, and on the balloon take a marker and draw some galaxies, and then blow the balloon up. You'll notice that the galaxies are not only going farther away from the center, but farther apart from each other. That's the way the universe is. The conclusion that scientists came to is that indeed there was a moment in which the universe was, quote, created. But how do you think you handle that if you're not a believer? Let me read from the Young Oxford Book of Astronomy that is used in schools, secular schools, as an astronomy textbook. At the very beginning of the universe, all matter and all radiation were concentrated into a tiny region of space much smaller than the nucleus of a single atom. The theory that the universe has expanded from next to nothing into its current immensity relies on the assumption that the redshifts of galaxies are caused by motion away from us. Now catch this. By the time the universe was about a millionth of a second old, much of the energy had been converted into protons. In the next milliseconds, electrons formed, and these collided with protons to make neutrons. Neutrons survived only 1,000 seconds as independent particles, so the next few minutes were critical! Exclamation point. During the first quarter of an hour, the protons reacted with the neutrons, which were fast decaying, to make the nuclear helium atoms. In a race against time, as the universe continued to cool and expand, the universe managed to convert... Well, I won't go on reading. It all happened in a moment of time, from next to nothing. Wow. What does the Tribune say? Yesterday's Tribune. You know that the evolutionists had a conference here in Chicago last week. Joel Primack, a professor of physics at the University of California at Santa Cruz, pointed out one unresolved mystery right at the birth of the universe. Physicists, Primack said, have recently realized that the basic forces of nature split off from one unified force for a few moments after the Big Bang, more than 15 billion years ago. That splitting could have happened in many different ways, only a few of which would have resulted in inhabitable planets such as the Earth. Humans seem to have hit the jackpot in a cosmic Las Vegas, Primack said, leaving room for the possibility that some divine providence was responsible for our luck. I have to be impressed by all the coincidences, he said. So we hit the jackpot. That's how it all happened. Edward Tryon, professor of physics at the University of New York, said years ago that he proposed that the universe created itself by a spontaneous action ex nihilo, that is, out of nothing. And he says this proposal variously struck people as preposterous, enchanting, or both. I would say not enchanting, but preposterous, yes, very preposterous. You know, I used to believe that if you could convince scientists that evolution was impossible, not just improbable, but impossible, that they would change their views. Wouldn't that be a natural assumption? If all the laws of science are against it, the fact that all matter for example, disintegrates into randomness rather than complexity when left alone. Unless it's directed by a mind, it never comes together in complexity, but always disintegrates. If you could point out, for example, that out of nothing, nothing can come. If you can show that intelligence is something that could not have arisen on its own, why then they would all decide to say, yes, indeed, evolution is false. It's contrary to science. I used to think that until I read a book and actually part of an article by Philip Johnson, who has written an excellent book about this. And what he has shown is the reason we've had... Have you ever wondered why it is that we see it so clearly that there had to be a God and the evolutionists just don't buy it no matter what scientific evidence is against evolution? Have you ever wondered why? Listen to this evolutionist. He lets the cat out of the bag, and Johnson has written an entire book to prove this thesis. Namely, that the commitment of atheistic evolution is not, first of all, to science. It is, first of all, to their presupposition that only matter exists and there is no God. Listen to this. An evolutionist, Lewontin, is writing, "We take the side of science in spite of the patent absurdity of some of the constructs, in spite of its failure to fulfill many of its extravagant promises of health and life, in spite of the tolerance in the scientific community for unsubstantiated just-so stories. We do this because we have a prior commitment, a commitment to materialism. It is not that the methods and institutions of science somehow compel us to accept a material explanation of the phenomenal world. But on the contrary, we are forced by our a priori adherence to material causes to create an apparatus of investigation and a set of concepts that produce material explanations, no matter how counterintuitive, no matter how mystifying to the uninitiated. Moreover, that materialism is absolute, for we cannot allow a divine foot in the door." The eminent Kant scholar Louis Beck used to say that anyone who could believe in God could believe in anything.